Welcome back into the Cowboys Report. Tom Downey here. We have some bad news to discuss on today's show. Wide receiver and return man KaVontae Turpin got himself arrested over the weekend for illegal weapon and marijuana charges. We'll break that down, what it means for Turpin, the Cowboys, suspension possibility, etc. Whether it is good news or bad news, we have you covered. Even if I'm traveling on a Sunday and not able to film any videos, we'll do it the next day and break it down for you. So hit that sub button if you haven't already, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Turpin picked up a pair of misdemeanor charges over the weekend. Possession of marijuana, less than 2 ounces, and unlawful carrying of a weapon. So I interpret as his permits were not handled the way it needed to be handled. Look, this is a bad look for KaVontae Turpin. He just got paid. He had some off-the-field issues in college that, to be fair, was a long time ago, but we will discuss here. It's a bad look for Turpin, and it's a negative thing for the Cowboys because you'd like to just get through a 4th of July weekend without any nonsense. Reset the meter. It's the photo from Jim and Dwight out of The Office, right? 0 days since our last nonsense. Cowboys had nonsense to deal with. So coming up here, we'll break down any potential suspension, discipline. I'm not as sky is falling as some other people are. The outlook for Turpin himself, what this means going forward. Discuss the previous issues as well. Before we get into that, give me your one-word reaction to KaVontae Turpin's arrest with the Dallas Cowboys. We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. So if that ad happens to come here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know one-word reaction to KaVontae Turpin's arrest. When it comes to a suspension for KaVontae Turpin, I don't think that will really be in play here at all, frankly. The NFL doesn't really punish players anymore for weed because it's 2025. Now, the end result here is he'll be tested more. He could be subject to more fines as a result of this arrest and charge. The gun charge also probably won't generate anything close to a suspension. NFL already announced previously there was going to be no discipline for Jameson Williams for a somewhat similar charge, and Williams had already run into a foul with NFL suspensions in the past. Now, internally, yeah, there will be some type of punishment for Turpin from the Cowboys, from Brian Schottenheimer, which we may not ever know what that is publicly. You know, the Cowboys and Schottenheimer will undoubtedly discuss this. I'm sure Shotty was not happy to have that come in on 4th of July weekend and be upset. There will maybe even be some semblance of like public shaming. Like Shotty will inevitably be asked about it once camp opens and the first press conference gets going. They'll ask him about it, and he'll probably have some comments for Turpin and be like, oh, we discussed it. You can't have it. It's a bad example, et cetera, et cetera. In the end, and I don't mean to belittle anything, this is far from the worst thing a Cowboys player has done. This is probably far from the worst thing KaVontae Turpin. In fact, it is far from the worst thing KaVontae Turpin has done. But he did break the number one rule. And the number one rule was from a high school teacher of mine. I thought it was a great rule. Don't be a dumbass. That is the number one rule in life. It applies to everything you do. Ask yourself before you do something, would a dumbass do this? And if the answer is yes, then you probably shouldn't do it. This is very much in the end falling into the you messed up, please don't do it again, or we're going to have a potentially bigger problem category. I don't expect a suspension here. It's not how the NFL actually operates with these things anymore, and they'll let the legal system play out, so it's certainly going to be a longer process on that front, but I am not expecting a suspension. I'm sure someone will say the NFL hates the Cowboys if they suspend Turpin over this, unless there's some extra thing behind the scenes involving this that we don't know has not been publicly reported. I just don't see it happening. So I'm not mad at KaVontae Turpin, but I am disappointed. So how disappointed are you with KaVontae Turpin for this one? Scale it for me 1 to 10 in the comments section of today's show. Again, some more longer viewpoint, big picture stuff here. As a reminder, Turpin signed a 3-year, $13.5 million deal, $5 million in total guaranteed, and $4.5 million in what is called not likely to be earned incentives, which means he didn't hit these numbers last year, so they're not likely to be earned. This is not really the 3-year, $18 million deal that some had reported. That was the agent money. The real money's 3 years, $13.5, only $5 million guaranteed. All of that comes this year, by the way. Turpin's fairly cheap. $3.1 million this year, $4.7 in 2026, $5.7 in 2027, with, move-onable dead money figures in 2026 and in 2027. The incentives, by the way, if he gets to 40 catches, he gets to 50K. 50 catches is 500K. 60 is 750 plus 500 yards, 700 yards, 100 yards. Numbers he's never hit before in his NFL career. But if he hits them, you're happy to pay those figures. That's why incentives are fairly commonly used by the Cowboys when it comes to free agency contracts. Now, I will make note. The standard contract for NFL players is to void any and all future guarantees in the event of a suspension. That's pretty much in every contract. Like, that's not really a surprise. Now, it's future guarantees. And the Cowboys in the past have had language in players' deals that allows for voiding of guarantees if a player gets fined. That was the big issue with the Randy Gregory contract, but not everyone has it. Dak Prescott doesn't have it in his deal. CeeDee Lamb doesn't have it in his deal. The bigger guys have had that language removed. In the end, Turpin only has his 2025 money guaranteed anyway. So this really won't apply because, by the time any potential discipline comes in the pipeline, you're already in 2026 and he has no more guaranteed money. So I wanted to make note of it because I think it's a key thing to discuss when a player gets into trouble, but I don't think it really applies that much to Turpin here. Keep an eye on these Cowboys shorts. 40% off over at chatsports.com/Cowboys shorts. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's hot lately. It is not pants weather. So, whether you're just trying to lounge around, run some errands, work out, do something physically active, make sure you're rocking the Cowboys and some shorts. Chatsports.com/Cowboys shorts. So Turpin is, I think, still a roster lock to make the team. I'm not going to change anything on that front. I am just curious, how does he get deployed this upcoming year? Lamb is receiver 1, Pickens is receiver 2, and then Mingo, Tolbert, Turpin will probably all have roles in some capacity, although we'll see about Mingo. I think there's still a lot to prove there. I would anticipate Turpin falling into the gadget bucket. I just think that is how it is best to utilize him. Give him some carries. Give him some jet sweeps. Give him some jet touch passes. Give him some slants. Give him some bubble screens. Just find a way to get the ball in space. He had 47 touches in total last year. Kind of sounds like Schottenheimer was a key force in the get Turpin the ball in the run game stuff, which annoyed me last year because they put that stuff in at training camp, and then it took them over half the season to use in an actual game. It was really frustrating to me. I do think the kick return rules also benefit KaVontae Turpin. 2023, he was heavily involved there, and then kind of wasn't as involved the next year. And then the kickoff rules benefited him. I am very curious to see. 2022, he was super involved, and teams went, we can't kick to him. Then the kickoff rules changed, and he got more involved in 2024. So I am curious to see how things play out, specifically for KaVontae Turpin. Offensively, I feel like we're in year 2 or year 3 of he's going to be more involved. So will the Cowboys actually use him more? I have some doubts, but I hope so. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Y for yes, N for no. Now, before we go, I do want to mention the off-the-field stuff at TCU that was a factor in why KaVontae Turpin had to go to the UFL. He did get kicked out of TCU over a couple different domestic violence cases and charges against him. He allegedly didn't inform Gary Patterson the second time it happened. That was the TCU's head coach at the time, and they move on from that and move on from him, and he gets cut from the team, and then he reached a plea agreement over the cases, one of which was pled down, one of which was essentially pled to, kind of, for lack of a better word, probation and an intervention program, essentially. There was a good piece on the Star Telegram way back when of the team and the coaches and everyone likes him, but the home life was not very good growing up, and friends and family were not very good influences, and there were just some mistakes he would make. So it was a long time ago, by all accounts, up until this weekend. Turpin had done everything right and hadn't gotten himself into trouble, but I think that is at least worth mentioning at the back end here.